Hi, I'm Tara from Wild Bird Farm. Do you have any of these laying around? Well, go grab them and let's do some winter sowing. Oh my goodness. Before we get started, I've got to show you the amaryllis and paper whites. This one is Giant Amadeus. Has three more buds coming. Dancing Queen, absolutely adorable and really holds her necks up well. And then I did finally, my paper whites and the little piggy were starting to droop, so I cut them and just put them in a loose bouquet here. But it's always fun to have flowers indoors this time of year. There are plenty of videos out there, even on YouTube, about how to winter sow in milk jugs or other similar containers. And while I'll quickly talk about what methods I use that have worked for me, I think more importantly, I'd like to talk about what varieties I'm going to start using this method. As a flower farmer, I need a lot of one type of plant. And a lot of those plants are warm season annuals. Those aren't things that I would generally start in the milk jugs. But what I really do like to start in milk jugs are perennials, natives, anything that needs a cool vernalization period are great things that I can start in milk jugs. Plants that I don't need at a certain time, right? So you could start snapdragons, let's say. They like the cool, you could start them in milk jugs. But I need a large quantity of snapdragons and I want to get them early in the season. So this probably isn't the best method for that. I start a lot of my seeds for cut flowers under lights indoors early in the season. So I'm not really using the milk jugs to replace any of that. But I did put in a pollinator strip last year. And out there I have coneflower, I have black-eyed Susan, I have milkweed, I have hyssop, I have agastache. All of those things need a vernalization period and are great to start in milk jugs. Another thing to note is starting in milk jugs really reduces your labor in the spring. If you start plants inside, they need a hardening off period. That usually takes 7 to 14 days. And what that means is the plants, the little bitty plants, are acclimated to our warm indoor temperatures. And you need to get them acclimated to the cool spring temperatures outside. And that includes carrying, most likely, or if you have them on something you can slide in and out. But for me, when I'm using a spare room in my home, it means carrying out those trays of seedlings in and out, first for a couple hours on our covered porch, increasing that time throughout the week, and then for an hour in direct sunlight and pulling them back and slowly increasing that time until they can take the cool temperatures of spring. They've hardened off somewhat to the wind. That actually is the most challenging for me. We have a lot of wind in the spring. And then also to direct sunlight. If you put a protected baby plant that you've had indoors directly out in the sun, they're probably going to get sunburnt. For me, just needing a few of these pollinator plants to put out in my patch. I don't need an entire row of something. I'm looking for 3, 4, 5, or 6 plants to fill out the landscaping around my home. This is the perfect situation. They will easily fit in a jug. I bet I will do probably at least 9 plants in each jug, hoping I get 4, 5, or 6. And then they're already hardening off. They're sitting out in the elements. And what you do is, first off, before you do anything to your jug, you poke holes in the bottom. And I usually poke 3 or 4. These are drainage holes. So if you're in a cold climate that's going to get snowfall, it can drain out if if the soil gets too saturated. Once you have the holes in your milk jug, then you cut sort of like a lid. So you leave a tiny bit attached that can kind of be flipped. And then you're gonna fill this bottom part with dirt. And I just use potting soil. One year I used seed starting mix and it got really dry and I had to supplemental water through the top. So once you get your soil in here, I use dampened soil and we'll walk through that in a bit. Then I'll plant my seeds. You'll close the clamshell cover and then you'll tape it, making sure to label what you've got in here. Otherwise, if you're like me, you will forget. And then you sit it out in an area where your dogs aren't going to get to it, if you're like me and have dogs, or the wind isn't gonna take them and tip them over. So I put them in a pretty protected area on the south side of my house. So they're gonna sit out there through the cold of January, February into March. When it starts getting a little bit warmer, I will start cracking these to let in some fresh, cool air and to prevent them from overheating, because these are essentially like little greenhouses. If you have a very dry winter and you aren't getting any snow or precipitation, you may need to water through the top here. But that's the gist of it. So in a little bit, we'll go do a couple together. But first, I want to talk about the varieties that I'm planning to plant. So first up is a couple of coneflowers. Coneflowers or echinacea. I have some of the traditional purple variety that you can probably picture a purple coneflower in your head. I picked up some, these are both from Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. One is a mellow yellow coneflower and another is a super duper pink variety, which looks kind of like a double, which I'm really excited about. And you never know, maybe these will double as some cut flowers. We'll have to see how they do. So I will be using a jug each for these two. And then I have a variety of catmint out in my landscape right now. I believe it's called Walker's Low. It's a pretty low mounding one. I also picked up this catmint called Grandview from Baker Creek. And let's see, it only gets 1 to 2 feet in height and 1 to 1.5 feet wide. So these are gonna be shorter mounding plants. So my plan, if I can get quite a few of these to germinate, is to put several mounds out in my pollinator patch, because we all know pollinators love catmint. And then I'm also gonna put some around my home landscaping around my house. And then the third thing I have is a couple of Rudbeckia. Certain types of Rudbeckia can be used and are great for cut flowers. I haven't had the best luck starting Rudbeckia indoors. I think maybe I keep it too moist, maybe was my problem last year. I did get the triloba to grow really well for me and it overwintered, but the beetles, the Japanese beetles, devoured these things. I had huge 5-foot plants and they just took out every flower petal. I couldn't use them. So I only have a few seeds left and I thought, let's just winter sow them. If they come up, I'm gonna put them out more as a landscape plant and not try and get them as cut flowers. And then the Prairie Sun Rudbeckia is another great cut flower. And I didn't have great luck with germination last year for these. And again, I only have maybe 12 or 15 seeds. So I thought I might as well try doing this in milk jugs. And if they pop up and sprout, then great, I can plant them out. Those were all I had planned in my head, but I went and grabbed my seed packets and I'm just gonna walk through a few of these quick, because if you're more of a home gardener or you just need maybe a half dozen cut flower plants, you can do these in milk jugs. So I have Dara Save Seed. This would be good. It's a cool, loving flower. That would be great to do in the milk jugs. Let's see what else I have. Orlea, another one. Whitefinch, Nigella, Larkspur. So a lot of these I direct sow, but I do an entire 25-foot row of them. And we'll do that later together. Let's see, probably, I think it'll be in March that we'll be doing that. But if you only want a half a dozen plants of any of these cool, loving flowers, it would be great to start those in milk jugs. So go ahead and do that. Let me go through, see if there's any others. Actually, someone told me that daisies are great to do in there. Let me see. I think I'm gonna do the daisies too. This packet doesn't specifically say so, but if you're reading the backs of your packets and it says direct sow as soon as soil can be worked, or plants like a cool start, or direct sow in the fall in warmer climates. Those are all indicators that these plants like to start their lives in cool weather. So that's kind of an indicator on the seed packet sometimes. So I think we're gonna try the daisies. Let's see, columbine, that's another one. Now I wanna start a lot of these, so I probably won't do this in milk jugs, but that is another good hardy one. Bells of Ireland, I'm gonna show you a trick how to germinate these, but these would work in milk jugs if you just want a half a dozen plants. Or if you want a ton of plants in the milk jug and you want to pick them all apart, that would work too. Let's see, feverfew, dianthus, this would work for. I like to get my dianthus early, so I'm going to be starting those soon. Hyssop. I have such a great row of this anise hyssop, the original purple bloom. And I am gonna start a few, mostly because I know I already have a row established and I like to just fill in if I've had any die off. So this way I'm not in a rush for these. I do like to use the green stems early in the season for cut flower, greenery, green foliage. So I'm gonna start a few of these. I'm gonna keep one pack out for that. Let me see, violas, pansies, scabiosa, poppies, although I'm going to show you how you can just sprinkle those poppies on the ground and they'll grow for you. Statice, strawflower, sweet peas, yarrow, all of those things. Great, cool, loving plants that would start well like this. Let me just look through, let's see, bupleurum, that's another one. I need a lot of that, so I'll direct sow that, or I start that in flats too. But if you've got, look at all this bupleurum I have. Bupleurum, a great one for that. Calendula, chamomile's another one. Let's see. We talked about poppies. I'm not sure about verbena. I have that in my cool direct sow, but I have to read on that. I kept verbena seeds, so I need to read up on that. But that gives you some good ideas, I think. So let's go get the dirt moistened and get it in the jugs. And then I just had these plastic labels that I will write the name on, and then I'll also write it on the jug itself. That way you kind of have a fail-proof system. If the jug name wears off, you still have the tags inside. Okay, I moved back to our laundry room where we have a sink. I'm just using regular potting mix. And then I have all my jugs prepped and I have that name written on the jug. So I'm going to moisten the potting soil and get my jugs filled. Okay, once you have the moistened dirt in here, potting soil, excuse me, I like to press it down so you have a flat surface in order to sow your seeds. Now, if your seeds are larger, you can make little holes and put them right into the soil. But if you have really tiny seeds, you can just sprinkle them on top and we'll add a dusting of more potting soil and a little bit of vermiculite. And as far as the amount of soil, I like to go at least 2 inches, between 2 and 3. You could fill this all the way up. I usually gauge it depending on, you know, if you were starting little plant plugs, they're usually 1.5 inches at least deep. So I think we've got ourselves well covered here with about 2 inches of soil. Okay, here are the Mellow Yellows coneflower. And we are going to sprinkle those in. Now you can be more precise and put a little hole and maybe put exactly 9 or 12 in here. I'm not going to be that precise. And then just a sprinkling of additional potting soil over top. Not a deep amount. And if you specifically read that your seeds need darkness, I would put a deeper layer. And if it says surface sow, I would probably skip this part altogether. I'm through with just a dusting of vermiculite, and this will help keep a little bit of moisture, kind of hold some moisture in the soil. And then I'm going to come through with my hand pump mister and just spray that dry topsoil and the vermiculite. Just make sure everything is thoroughly damp. And if you have good drainage holes in the bottom, you have to worry a lot less about how much water you're putting on the soil. Three down, 3 to go. Okay, so don't forget to put your tag inside, and then you're gonna tape your seam closed. Now, if I had gray duct tape, I would use that, but I didn't. So I'm just using clear packing tape. If these don't seem like they're gonna hold through the winter outside, I will go back through and wrap them with duct tape. That's all there is to it. And then I'm gonna finish up here, and then we can take them outside. Okay, up against the south side of our house, we have this kind of narrow mulched area. And I do brace it generally with rocks every season because we have curious cats, dogs, and even the chickens are coming over here to see what's going on. Oh, right on time, there's a cat. So I brace them so they don't get knocked over, and I will find something narrow to put back here too, so they're really wedged in. And then I'll just check on them every once in a while to make sure that they're still moist. If not, I'll water through the top, and we will check on these in the spring and see what we have germinating. I think that does it for today, guys. I think I better get that back brace sooner rather than later. These cats are gonna have those dumped over. Until next time, stay out of the cold.